This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and we have a very important show for you today, my friends. We're going to be talking about some of the horrific things that are happening right now in China. And no, I'm not talking about Wuhan or the coronavirus or the police state, the unbelievable security network surveillance state that is being set up there. No, today we're going to be talking about something that seems to be going a little bit under the radar as people are distracted with these other stories that are covering, taking up all the news. So today we're going to be exposing the fact that the Chinese government is engaging in the forced organ harvesting of their people. And I'm not talking about dead people, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about people who are alive and well and healthy. And on top of that, the government is targeting specific groups, in particular, a spiritual group, the Falun Gong. So as I've been saying for over 10 years on this channel, sometimes, a lot of the times what we see in China is very much so a blueprint for what we may soon see here in the West. So I think it's incredibly important that we take a look at this and understand that it is indeed going on. So joining me on the line today to help me understand all of this is Mitchell Gerber. He is an activist who has been covering this for decades, I believe about 20 years now. So he knows all too well the in and outs and what's truly going on behind the scenes there in China. So Mitchell, thank you so much for joining us here today on Press for Truth. Maybe you could start us off by telling us how you first heard about this issue, that this is actually happening in China, and why you decided to dedicate your activism to exposing this issue.
Well, thanks, Dan. Appreciate for you allowing me to come on your show. I mean, I'm actually risking my life 100 miles away from the Chinese border as we speak in communist Vietnam. I was so moved by the courageousness of this Falun Gong movement. A lot of people don't really know what Falun Gong is, and I came to learn about this particular spiritual movement when I was studying international business at the University of Georgia. I'm an American citizen, South African born, American raised, and on May 4th, 2001, actually 20 years ago to this date, I came to understand that the Chinese Communist Party, the reign of terror that has been controlling China, the Chinese people, the Chinese civilization, the Chinese government for the last 70 years, has been sending hundreds and thousands of innocent spiritual movement practitioners of the spiritual mind and body practice, namely Falun Gong, as well as other religious groups called the Uyghur Muslims, the Tibetans, and the House Christians, to state-mandated hospitals, turning the doctors into murderers, run by the Chinese military, cutting out the organs of these people while alive, cutting out their organs forcefully and then selling their organs as massive amounts of profits for the last 20 years, and creating a multi-billion-dollar organ harvesting business, legally and state-sanctioned, unlike any other practice, unlike any other government, or unlike any other place in the world. Not like some kidney in the bathtub theory or some fantasy or some other kind of organ harvesting, which does go on in the world. But this is legal, state-sanctioned, kill-to-order genocide, and that's been going on for 20 years. So when I heard about this, Dan, I was so incredibly moved, and I had to do something. I was, compelled into action. So here we are today.
Wow. So we're not even talking about black market organ selling. We're talking about, on the papers, legit stuff that the Chinese government is just flat out doing. This is unbelievable. Now, why, in your opinion, are they targeting these particular groups? Is it, to silence them as a people and their religion? Or is it more because that they are physically healthy? Their organs are actually quite healthy? Or is it a combination of the two? What do you think is the reason why they're specifically targeting the Falun Gong and other religious groups?
Absolutely. Well, just to get started, for people to really understand and give people a perspective about what Falun Gong really is. Falun Gong is an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition. It's very similar to Tai Chi, very similar to yoga, meditation. It's pronounced Falun Gong, Dan, and it consists of moral teachings, a meditation, and 4 gentle exercises that are truly unique and a highly effective way to improve your health and energy levels. And at the core of Falun Gong is a universal principle and universal value system based on truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And when Falun Gong just grew so quickly, the numbers, Dan, grew so quickly between 1992, when it was introduced by the teacher, Mr. Li Hongse, the fastest award-winning and most popular teacher, spiritual holistic teacher in China, to 1998, 100 million people, that was more than 30 million people in the actual communist membership roster of the Chinese Communist Party. 1 out of every 10 Chinese national citizens, from the highest ranking officials of the Chinese government to military personnel to high ranking officials of businesses, more than half of upper class society were practicing. So 1 out of every 10 Chinese national citizens were practicing. That gave rise to the largest spiritual movement and thought, type of thought, mind and body practice in Chinese history, never seen before. And then the other religious groups, Falun Gong is not a religion, it's more of a spiritual way, but the other groups which are religious, basically Tibetans and house Christians and Uyghur Muslims, were also targeted after that. We've known about the Tibetans with the Dalai Lama, but no one has known really about the Falun Gong. They were targeted because 3 reasons. It became the largest spiritual movement in all of Chinese thought and history. Second of all, the ideology of Falun Gong that represents truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance stands in stark contrast to the evil, demonic nature and killing nature of the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is a reign of terror. There's been no other specter or demonic regime or wicked scoundrel regime in history that has killed more life than the Chinese Communist Party. At least 100 to 120 million people have been wiped out by the Chinese Communist Party, slaughtered and butchered, 5,000 years of Chinese culture decimated, and millions of innocent Chinese girls killed under the one-child policy and now harvesting their own citizens. And the third reason why Falun Gong was targeted particularly, and most of the organs have been sourced from Falun Gong, is because the Chinese government, under the behest of the Chinese Communist Party, run by the Chinese military, started to do research on the extraordinary health benefits of Falun Gong. They were producing this extraordinary health efficacy psychologically and physiologically, and particularly with the organs, transforming them into health. And they found this as a way to make massive amounts of profits of cutting out their organs while alive and then selling their organs to the rich international community of patients and their own rich citizens as well, making a fortune off this for the last 20 years, still going on to this day.
Wow. It honestly sounds to me like it's all about controlling people, that they actually saw the movement as a threat, and that if it continued to blossom the way it would, they would lose the control that they currently have. So it makes me wonder, is this coming directly at the hands of the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, or is there some kind of rogue element in there? Is there some sort of a criminal element within the government that is doing this, or is it just the Chinese government in general?
This is what is so unbelievably sick and twisted. And when the world realizes what's going on in China, they're going to be soul stirred. It's the highest ranking officials, President Xi, the former president of China, President Jiang Zemin, the highest ranking officials, Dan, I mean, to really put it into perspective, in 1999, when 1 month before the actual complete persecution of Falun Gong began, the complete forbidden and banning of Falun Gong, which made it completely illegal for Falun Gong to be practiced in China, the former leader of the Chinese Communist Party, Jiang Zemin, now many people know about Hu Jintao and now President Xi, but they don't know about Jiang Zemin. When the persecution began, he was seeking a way to consolidate his power while also eliminating the largest movement of thought in recent Chinese history. So when the persecution began in July 1999, he established a 610 office called as a Gestapo type of Chinese office, just like very similar what the Nazis did to eradicate the Jews in Nazi Germany. He created the president of China with his gang of scoundrels at the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party, created the 610 office 1 month before the complete crackdown of Falun Gong, that still sits on top of the Chinese Communist Party as a Gestapo type SS basically office that controls all levels of government, economic, social and political spectrums, for one mandated policy and intention, and one intention only: to eradicate and declare war against Falun Gong. Everything in China has been tied to Falun Gong since 1999, and eradicate them, bankrupt them financially, turn them into rats and raw material, like vermin, like the Nazis did with the Jews, and then kill them for their organs and make a massive multi-billion-dollar organ harvesting business off them, and then conceal it from the world. So this is coming from the highest ranking officials of the Chinese Communist Party, and it's still been mandated and kept into operation under President Xi since the 1999 crackdown that began under Jiang Zemin's reign, the former president of China.
Wow, unbelievable. You know, that it makes me wonder if China is the only one here, or are there others? I mean, have you ever heard of evidence of this happening elsewhere? And what do you think the possibility of things like this coming to the West are?
No, there has been no other regime on the face of the earth. The Nazis didn't even have this kind of technology. There is no other regime, no other government, no other empire that has ever conducted such a legal, state-sanctioned, kill-to-order genocide like the Chinese Communist Party. And the evidence has come out and has been confirmed, Dan, by 3 investigators particularly. I brought them on a coalition to London last year when we were presenting at a child trafficking court in London. These investigators first confirmed the allegations that were true in 2006. David Kilgour is a former Secretary of State to the Asian Affairs of the Canadian Parliament. David Mattis is a 35-year international human rights lawyer out of Winnipeg. These 2 gentlemen banded together in 2006, confirmed 18 hardcore pieces of evidence that between 2001 and 2006, between 40 and 65,000 Falun Gong practitioners were harvested alive for their organs. Then Ethan Gutman, a China investigator, joined forces with David Kilgour and David Mattis as the investigator of the slaughter. His book of 8 years of investigation reports, and conducted confirmed reports, at least now 52 pieces of evidence that between 80 and 100,000 innocent Falun Gong practitioners have been harvested each year under the Chinese Communist regime's leadership for their organs, including Uyghur Muslims, House Christians, and Tibetans. But yes, there's no regime on the face of the earth that are legally sanctioned, turning their doctors into murderers, using their hospitals, over 800 hospitals, their military, their secret police, their treasury, and has tied their entire economic, social, and political specters and spectrums and realms to eradicate a spiritual group and kill them for their organs on such a large scale. It's unprecedented. There's no other regime on the face of the earth. No.
So I suppose this is why you've dedicated your activism to this cause, and in particular are there on the border keeping a close eye on this. What sorts of things have you been able to accomplish over the years? I mean, you're up against a behemoth here. I mean, when you're taking on the Chinese government, I think that's just about as a big bad of a bully that you can take on. So what sort of things have you been able to do? And more so, what are things that the average person out there watching this video can possibly do?
Well, thank God for you, Dan, because I have reached out to so many people. I mean, I go on Twitter daily, sending out videos and pleading with people, 15, 20, 30 different emails, because I also see people not talking about China. China's in the limelight, China this, China that, the Chinese Communist Party, especially about the virus, because now The virus is at the doorstep of every single person. Before it wasn't. It was even harder for me to actually get on shows, to talk to the governing bodies. The United Nations is sold out. The World Health Organization, which we call the Communist Health Organization, is in bed with the Chinese Communist Party. They're all colluding. Hollywood, Wall Street, the Henry Kissingers of the world, the Rockefellers of the world, the globalist cabal, the NBA has been colluding with the Chinese Communist Party, keeping quiet with the Hong Kong protesters, retracting their statements of supporting Hong Kong because they don't want to upset the communist regime's conflict with Taiwan or conflict with Hong Kong because of the market share. So it's been such an uphill battle, but risking my life, risking my colleagues' life, risking people's lives all over the world. And yes, this has been an absolute enormous campaign for the last 20 years, which I haven't given up because, you know, Dan, what is a man who cannot make the world a better place? To fail to expose evil and to fail to support good is unacceptable. And you as well on the front lines. I mean, your crusade in exposing evil and upholding justice. That's why I take my hat off to you, because not many people would expose this. And however, I do see traction. I do see more and more people turning their heads to this and focusing on this, because it cannot be denied anymore. I mean, this has been going on for 20 years, irrefutable evidence, more and more evidence coming out each and every day, and this cannot be refuted. So I see more and more people, you know, grappling with this issue, yet still the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the governing bodies around the world won't even touch it. Won't even
Wow.
touch it.
Well, we really need to step up then. I'm going to contact some of my independent alternative media friends. Many of us are in the same circles and we talk to each other behind the scenes. I'm going to contact them and let them know, hey guys, you should interview Mitchell about this, because this absolutely needs to be exposed. So I'll do that when we're done here, and hopefully get you on some other shows in the next few days. But people are going to be wondering where they can learn about this and what are some of the go-to places if they're like, wow, I didn't know this was happening. This is crazy. I want to learn more. How can I help? Where do I go? Where's the info? What are some of the best links that you think we should point people towards today?
Absolutely. Well, please, everybody, learn the exercises. I mean, especially in this time where there's so much stress, there's so much anxiety. You know, I'm not a spiritual kind of woo-woo guy. I love working out. I love martial arts and Tai Chi and yoga. But what I love about Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is that it's free. It is incredibly good and profound for the body, and it's helped me sleep better at night, stress relieving. It protects me from a lot of toxins. It detoxifies my body. Now, the Chinese Communist Party demonized the spiritual movement as a cult, a CIA-backed cult, which is absolutely nonsense. I mean, they've done the same thing with Tibet and Tibetan Buddhism, calling the Dalai Lama, who is advocating peace and support for his people. They've labeled him an evil cult and radical cultist. They've labeled yoga, and I mean a cult as well. It's so sinister. So people who have had the misconception about Falun Gong are now understanding that it's not a cult. It's a very easy to learn, profound spiritual practice, and I do recommend them learning at falundafa.org. That's www.falundafa.org. To learn about what Falun Gong is, Dan, and the persecution and the organ harvesting behind it, I'll share the other link as well, www.faluninfo.net, faluninfo.net. Great information, great insight, and an easy-to-use platform to navigate to, as well as the information, the evidence, because people really want to know about the evidence. It's like, is this really going on, Mitch? I don't want to just hear you talk about something and pull a rabbit out of the hat. Is this really going on? Absolutely, folks. And you can look at all the evidence, all the reports at endtransplantabuse.org, endtransplantabuse.org. Also, stoporganharvesting.org. And there's another website for those really heavy, avid readers who love to learn about what is behind the Red Dragon and behind the Red Veil of China. There's a great publication, a free publication, called The 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party, exposing the evilness of communism, the deception of the communist regime in China that took over China in 1949 under Mao Zedong, and has now still kept being on the reign of terror, and now has not only destroyed and slaughtered millions of Chinese people, but has now focused and terrorized your families under lockdowns, has caused you stress and dismay, has caused you job loss for you, business loss and death, a loss of life. I mean, what, over 70 to 80,000 people dead in the United States, more than the number of the Vietnam War. So this is a great publication called the 9 Commentaries of the Communist Party, www.ninecommentaries.com. And Dan, I gave you all the links so you can share them as free of charge with your guests.
Absolutely. I mean, well, you've given everybody a lot of food for thought today, a lot to think about. I think, you know, this audience was generally aware of the one-child policy and how many deaths are involved with that, but I don't think they were truly aware of the organ harvesting. Had they had been subscribed a few years ago, because I've had you on before, this is the second time we've spoken about this, maybe they knew about it, but this is why I think it's incredibly important to continue to just hammer this home and let people know that this is happening. So I'm going to have all of those links that you mentioned in the description below. I strongly encourage everyone to check them out. Mitchell, any final thoughts here moving forward about, you know, what the world needs to know about this, and what people need to think about in regards to the fact that the Chinese government is doing this to its own people, the implications of such a thing? What do you want to leave people with today?
Well, I wanted to share with you just one quick report that the investigator Ethan Gutman, his book is The Slaughter. People can also learn about that from buying his book, and also going to endtransplantabuse.org. There's the report there. But he was interviewed by a reporter, and the reporter asked him a question: what do you say to those people who still doubt that organ harvesting has occurred or is occurring on a large scale in China, especially to the use of Falun Gong practitioners? He mentioned, the dogs bark, the caravan moves on. Look, the slaughter has been out for a year. That's plenty of time for serious reviewers to question my conclusions. I can't think of one who has. Even the South China Morning Post, which obviously had to give a critical review given their financial relationship with the mainland, didn't dare. And I stand by every footnote, every interview. I don't begrudge anyone the right to doubt. As I say in my book, these are serious allegations, toxic allegations. But no one has the right to dismiss the allegations without reading the corpus of work that has been published. The Slaughter, which is my book, Bloody Harvest and State Organs from David Kilgore and David Mattis, not to mention all the investigative reports that have been authored by the Epoch Times out of New York, the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong, and Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting. The investigations, folks, started in 2006, yet the volume of investigative work is only increasing. You want to comment? Hit the books. If someone is too lazy to read about the subject or just doesn't care enough about Chinese atrocities to bother, perhaps they should keep silent. So my big message to everybody, Dan, is that Edmund Burke, a great parliamentarian, said it best, that the only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So I'm so grateful that I've come onto your show to share with your listeners and your audience about the Falun Gong. They're a beautiful spiritual movement that have done no wrong in the world. The teacher, Mr. Li Hongzhi, has been nominated for 5 Nobel Peace Prizes. He's come out and given the people in this world a simple way to reduce stress and to become better people based on truthfulness, compassion, tolerance, and 5 exercises. There's nothing wrong with that. Yet, if it was such an evil, horrible, sinister thing, then why is the Chinese Communist regime killing them on mass scale, on a kill-to-order basis, for their organs, and selling them and making a fortune on their organs? So to that point, people should try the exercises, because the healthiest organs in the world, a mass slaughter campaign to eradicate them and sell them for massive amounts of profit, just that alone should intrigue people to practice these exercises. So that's what I implore. I think more and more people will come to understand what's going on and will be soul shocked that this is going on, that a power of this magnitude that has the largest military, the second largest economy in the world, has been doing this to their own citizens. And I look forward, Dan, to having more of a discussion with you, and as you said, on more platforms, as you in your community, in your circle, to expose this and bring justice and awareness and support to this innocent, beautiful movement of China called Falun Gong, and to bring to justice this vile, evil, wicked gang of scoundrels, namely the Chinese Communist Party, that has been terrorizing China for the last 50 years and has committed this atrocity not only to the Chinese people, but now under the cover up and lies of the Chinese Communist Party in the world today.
Very well said. I mean, you know, they're doing something right when the government fears them to that extent. And this is happening simultaneously when they're poisoning the food, poisoning the air, making us incredibly ill, trying to just break us down and going against people who are self-sustainable and living for themselves off the land. These are all the things that the government fears. So if that's what the Falun Gong is all about, I mean, obviously they're going to want to silence it. They don't want people to know that, hey, you can be healthy. You can have very healthy organs just by doing proper exercising and various other methods that the Falun Gong teaches. So not surprised that they're going after this particular group. But I want to thank you, Mitch, for essentially dedicating the last 20 years to this cause and to raising awareness about this, because unless we didn't have people like yourself and the investigative journalists who are uncovering this, people would still just think this is some sort of conspiracy theory. But I think, as we've shown today, that is absolutely not the case. This is indeed happening. It's happening right now, and it needs to stop.
Oh, absolutely. And one more thing I wanted to mention before we end. Anastasia Lin, who is Miss World, she's a beauty queen. She has a movie out called The Bleeding Edge that she played a Falun Gong practitioner who was tortured in a labor camp and almost killed basically killed for her organs. She plays that in The Bleeding Edge. People can watch the film as well. There's also a really good documentary called Hard to Believe Movie. It has been released by Swoop Films on YouTube under the coronavirus lockdown. I will implore people to watch it as well. And I've practiced Falun Gong for over 15 years. It's nothing cultish. It's very beautiful. You can come if you want to come. There's no money involved, but it really has an amazing, tremendous effect on the body. And again, I appreciate it, Dan, for allowing me to come on your show and share about this. And I look forward to sharing more updates with you in the future.
Fantastic. All right, man. Thanks again for joining us. Everyone, I really strongly encourage you to check out the links below and, get involved. Try to expose this. Share this video. Click the thumbs up button. Share this link. Let's make this go viral. And maybe if enough people become aware that this is actually a problem, something major can be done about it. So once again, thank you so much, man. And you keep up the great work. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.